producer, Obaida Hitto, who joins us now live in the studio. Thanks so much for coming in, Obaida. I mean, at the risk of sounding cynical, haven't we seen this before? Threats to try Israel at an international level for crimes against humanity that have never been transformed into actual action on the ground.
Yeah, so at the end of the report, it mentions several things. The Commission makes some recommendations to all the parties involved, including Israel and the authorities in Gaza. They call for the refrainment of using lethal force. This is unlawful according to the Commission. It's a violation of international law. They also say that Israel, or recommend that Israel changes its rules of engagement. Apparently, the report found that Israel was targeting specific individuals called main insiders, people where protests were being organized from, or who Israel alleges they were being organized from. The UN Commission is basically telling Israel, these are things that you should change in your policy, these are things that you should change in the way that you're dealing with these protesters. The report also found that they were killing women and children, which is against international law. And so the report is making all of these recommendations and identifying all of these violations, but there's really no teeth to holding anyone accountable. The report also admits that Gazans who have their rights violated don't have legal avenues to take Israel or Israeli authorities or even civilians who are responsible for causing this harm or injury to them. So there's no legal process for Gazans to, get retribution, even though the report recommends that Israel finds ways to, give people the justice that they deserve. I think that this report is going to be put to the test tomorrow. Just last week, on February 3rd, 3 children were killed in the protests. Now this report is coming out. The UN is saying that there's enough evidence to claim that Israel is committing war crimes in Gaza and dealing with these protesters with these particular policies. Tomorrow is another Friday. Protests will go on. We will see how Israel reacts to those protests. And a final report is going to be submitted to the Security Council on March 18th. And there's still a few more Fridays to go before then. So this might give Israel some time to adjust its policies, but I think that that's a little bit too late. The issue here, like you said, is that there's really no way to put all this into action and to hold Israel or whoever is responsible for committing these crimes to justice.
Because ultimately, as you said, it will end up at the UN Security Council, and the U.S. will veto any action recommended to be taken against Israel. Even just reforming its policies, we can pretty much assume that the U.S. will quash that as well.
The U.S. has had a very consistent record in vetoing any UN Security Council resolution that condemns Israel for any kinds of rights violations. And even you can see the kind of position that the UN has already taken on this issue, because they're referring to Gaza as occupied or disputed territories. And it's still unclear if the UN is recognizing the Hamas government or if it's recognizing the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank, and who is actually responsible for giving justice to these victims in Gaza, who are Palestinians who don't necessarily have a state that can give them their rights.
Okay, Obaida, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.